Durek hails from a long line of spirit shamans. He acts as a spiritual guide, bridging the gap between the spiritual and physical worlds by applying ancient teachings to modern problems. He's impacted thousands from all walks of life, public figures, celebrities, CEOs, little children, mental health experts. Give it up for Shaman Durek, everyone. I'm applauding myself. Shaman Durek, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you.
So wonderful to have you here after having you on the podcast, what, 6 months probably ago?
Yeah.
Maybe a little more.
Yeah.
I got so much feedback. So as soon as I knew that Optimistic was going to be born into the world, you came to mind instantly. So to see you here and have you here for this is so awesome. Thank you for showing up.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You've got a lot going on in your world, even in that last 6 to 9 months, whatever it's been. It's been quite the whirlwind for you, huh?
Yes, it has.
I know there's been a lot of press with new love in your life.
Yes.
Yeah, so a princess, huh?
Yeah.
Wow, all right. So tell me a little bit, you were telling me a little bit about that before we turned on the camera, before we sat down here, and how it's really kind of charged a lot of people and sort of stirred some things up. I'd love to, hear your take on that a little bit.
Absolutely. So, for me being a shaman, and for her being the princess of Norway and being a part of the royal family, coming into a relationship, anyone who gets close to a royal family member on any level, be it dating or marriage, is always going to get ripped apart from the press. Yeah. But the thing for me, it's also because of the color of my skin. Yep. It's because of the fact that I'm open to, I'm fluid in my sexuality. I'm also a shaman. So you can
all
imagine,
the things.
Right?
Got it. Did we miss any? No, I think we got them all. Okay.
Yeah. So. Yeah, so the thing is that what happens is that everyone's issues is coming out.
Yeah.
So you're getting a lot of press worldwide. Paparazzi following us everywhere we go, which has been a challenge for me because I never experienced that level of people in your face every second, everywhere you go, just cameras, taking pictures of you, and not only just you, but also your family members, and going to your mom's house and chalking in front of her house and waiting for her to open the door. I mean, It's been really intense. But the other thing also too, the stirring has been a lot of the racial issues and a lot of the sexual issues and a lot of the issues that are around women and what I'm doing in the world and being a shaman and so forth. And so, you're getting the racism from all over the world, where people writing me saying they want to lynch me, they want to do this to me, they want to kill me. They're like, how do you bring a person like me into the royal palace? And then I have she's amazing, strong, powerful woman. So it's not like I'm just there together, we're a strong force. But she's also, come from this place of being the first monarchy to come out and say, of the monarchy family, to come out and say, hey, I speak to spirits, I am in holism, I write books for spirituality, I opened the first spiritual center in Norway. So she's a powerful force in her own. And what we do for women empowerment and the way that we operate and the things that we get involved in, it stirs the pot for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it brings up a lot of issues. And for me, in the beginning, it was really intense. I had some breakdowns, I'll be honest about it.
Imagine.
And then I pulled it in, and I called a lot of my friends who are public figures, and I was like, how do you handle this? And they're like, they don't know you. So, that your tribe knows you. The people who you spend time with, you give love to, they know you. So people are gonna say what they're gonna say. And the way I look at it and the way she looks at it is that, we have lived together in other lifetimes, and we've come together again, and we've come to put the power back in people's hands. And we are also here because we love each other unconditionally. And if we didn't, we wouldn't be together, because we believe very strongly that if you're not amplifying love, there's no reason for you to be together. And that goes in business, that goes in love, that goes in every aspect, right? So we are showing an example to the world of what's possible. And for people who have an uncomfortableness with that, be it color, be it whatever it may be, let it get stirred. I believe in ruffling people's feathers because it really helps them to grow. And that's how I look at it.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's little nod to the princess. Yeah, I got this. Princess Martha Louise is here. Thank you for coming and supporting. So, yeah, it's to me, it's sort of reminiscent. You think of the 50s when, like, a black woman and a white man, or whatever the combination was. It was like such a huge controversy. And now you start here in this day and age, you think of that sort of thing is kind of over, but then you take that into a royal family, and now you're starting to get really close to the core of, you know, this old system that's ready to be uprooted and to evolve and change. And so I applaud you for setting that up in your whole path on this planet. I would imagine you guys prearranged this whole thing
before coming
prior
to
to
Earth.
incarnation.
Yeah. I mean, we
Well
always
done.
make this comment. We always say that, like, whatever we do, it's not really us doing it. It's spirit guiding us,
Yeah.
right? And we don't move unless spirit guides us. And I think also, too, which has been really interesting to me, is that the racism comes from both sides. So it's not just from the white side,
Sure.
it's coming from the black side as
Yeah,
well. It's like,
yeah.
how dare you be with this woman when there's all these beautiful black women out there you could have been with,
Right.
and everything. And then there's like, well, you should be with men, or you should be with women, and what about this? And it's just, to me, it's just let it come, because I always say comments and all these like people trolling and all that. It's really this modern day witch hunt,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And but it is, the cool thing is we're not just one, we're not just two, we're many, and that's where we get to really like see the power that we've achieved from the guru consciousness that people have, is that one person who's stepping forth. It's not about that; it's about the tribe, and we're all leaders, and we're all here to leave legacy. And so
Yes.
that's what I believe.
Yes. Absolutely. You know, I love these. Now, of course, we can have genetic testing done. And I think that's such a wonderful advancement, because we can see, hold on, we're all mixed up. We're all, you know, I think a lot of people are probably getting quite the surprise when they find out what's in their heritage, what's in their DNA. And it's like, it's such a silly notion when you understand that, and then you think about, okay, because you're dark complected and you're light complected, you don't belong together. It's like, it's a wild thing. It's wild for me to hear that it's still going on today. And of course, you add in the gender fluidity, the spiritual aspect, you know, what the work that you do. I mean, some of the things that I saw, even when you were on the Positive Head podcast, it was you were claiming some pretty fascinating and powerful. You're making some powerful statements and claims. And if you guys want to go hear that, that's episode 802, by the way. And you can hear some stuff that he did there. It was, I mean, I found out there was some validation later that went on that I was like, wow, like he really went for it, and he really, you know, walking the walk and walking the talk. And so, yeah, it's pretty incredible. Maybe tell us a little bit about your path. You know, you're multi-generation shaman from Africa.
Yeah, so my family comes from Ghana and Haiti. And my great-great-great-great-grandfather and then grandmother, from generations down, they were shamans in the tribe, in the Lukumi tribe and the Yoruba tribe. And then it was just passed down from one generation to the next until it got to me. And the interesting thing about it is that when people think shamanism, they always think and associate plant medicine.
Right.
They think a shaman is based in plant medicine.
Yep.
When in fact, our training is about anthropology, sociology, understanding human dynamics. Why do human beings migrate? How do they migrate? How do they associate? How do they communicate? And how do we create a sustainable relationship with each other to be able to coexist with difference in who we are as individuals, right? And it's like every cell in the body is operating in this autonomy, but also in this collective. And yet we as human beings have not been able to figure out how do we do that? We're always looking outside to find out who we are by what media shares with us, or what magazines show us, billboards tell us to buy, or who our friends think we should be, and then we take on those ideas. And shamanism is about bringing everything back to the core, removing all aspects. So growing up in a family that was very strong, but then also having a father who was trained in shamanism since he was a kid. He was apprenticed to my great grandmother and my family's lineage. And then when he got older, he wanted to push it away. Mm-hmm. But even though my grandmother was like, you're going to have a son, and he's going to be the next in line, and you have to prepare him. So it was always this clash with my dad, which was always like, yes, we have these powers, but don't show it to the world.
Right.
But hide it behind the door. But then I won't hide it behind the door sometimes. But then I will, and then I'll get mad at you for sharing it. And And so
Very confusing.
very confusing. And not only that, but then you grow up as a child with these abilities and your powers get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And then you have all these intense things you have to go through to prove your ability and your family that you have achieved certain levels of abilities to access to be able to be of service to the world. So it's not just I'm taking a plant medicine and digesting it. It's like, no, plant medicine is like the tiny itsy bitsy aspect of shamanism that we deal with all these other levels that we have to deal with. And when we are growing up and you're dealing with that and you're dealing with it not in Africa, but you're dealing with it in a suburban town, a little bit outside of San Francisco, and everyone's going to school and riding bikes and everything, and you're watching spirits and you're looking at your teacher and going, you're being mean today because you had a fight with your husband last night. Like you start seeing everything, and then you think your friends understand you, and they're looking at you like the freak because you're saying things that are scaring them, and then they're telling their parents, and then you're not getting invited to birthday parties, and you're always alone. And then when people did come over to my house, it was always to see the freak, you know?
Right.
So it was really about me looking at my freedom of who I am and asking myself, am I willing to honor my freedom over someone's need over my need to get someone's love from someone? And I chose my freedom. And so that's why I can go to countries like Israel in the middle of bombs and wars and be in the coup in Turkey and stand up where ISIS is on the border of Gaziantep and where bombs and people are putting bulletproof vests on me and doing all these things. The reason why I can step into that space is because I got to a level inside of myself where I don't need your validation. And I think that's also great for my relationship as well, because when people are just constantly talking bad at me all the time, it doesn't, to me, it's like, that's your issue. I'm here for something greater, and I'm not here to be in the Maya and get caught up in it. Right. You know, that's why I don't watch like award shows and do all these kind of things. Like, I'm very focused about women empowerment, putting power back in young girls. And so for me, growing up as a kid, I did a lot of work in battered women's shelters, and that's how I really started my work as a women empowerment leader. And really, you know, learning all of these facilities and these faculties of thought and education and shamanism really helped me to be able to do what I'm doing today, which is to just stay my path and put the power back in people's hands and like show people the matrix is real and really like wake them up to their own power. And so when people meet with me, you're not having a session with me, you're having a session with yourself. And I'm just kind of holding the space of unconditional love and giving you these kick-ass tools to be like, here, play and see yourself. And then I'll just hold space for you to see your power. And then you just be this illuminated being and come out and let's just walk this path together.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's a powerful, powerful statement. And it's something that I've subscribed to for some time. It's like, we can heal ourselves, right? Having someone powerful enough to hold the space to create the container is really, really important. And you know, that sounds like exactly what you're focused on, and not saying, hey, it's all me, it's, you know, I'm...
Nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
It never, that's the thing that I find interesting when I look at the spiritual context of like what the narrative that I see everyone operating in, this very guru, go to the shaman, get ayahuasca, do this, do that. It's making humanity codependent. Mm-hmm. And in order for us to be leaders, we have to be independent. And that's what the system wants. The system wants you to be codependent so they can build more systems upon systems to give you more things to be codependent to. And so for me, my whole thing is like, if you can't stand in front of me and access your power, but you're constantly thinking that you're going to get it from some plant medicine, that's the only way you can access the spirit world, I'm going to show you how to access the same exact experience that's more intense and more like in your center without you thinking everything's outside of you to go get something. Now, you can walk on tons of fires and you can go to as many workshops as you want to go, but at the end of the day, it's your choice to either accept that you're powerful or not accept that you're powerful, and that's it.
Right.
There's no. It's not about how many books you read or how many colleges you go to. Do you accept it or do you not accept it, and that's it.
Right. And once you understand who and what you are, that's the first step. I feel like realizing like I am one with the source consciousness that creates and animates all things. I have as much right to be here and to create abundance and magic and all the good things in life as any other person that ever has been or will be, right?
Yeah, and you know, in shamanism, we have this belief that God is not Santa Claus, right? Source is not Santa Claus. It's not doling out the good,
right,
and, you know, to the good and punishing the bad with a lump of coal, right? So we believe very strongly that Source is an amplifier of code. And so you are the writer, that person's a writer, that person's a writer, and we're all writers of code. We are code writers, just like we write code for computers and we write code for most of the system that we have today. Everything is based in codes, frequencies, energies, codes, and symbols. It's like 1111, 121212, 333, 444. These are all codes. Symbolism such as Reiki, this thing, Jorei, all these symbolisms you see, these are all codes, but they're fragmented into what we call zip drive, right? Like a zip code, but they're into a symbol, but they're all codes. And so our body is made up of code frequency. Food is made up of code frequency. So everything is operating code frequency, and we are the writers of that code every time we open our mouths, every time we think, and every time we react. And so whatever we do, it just gets amplified. That's all source is. It just goes, oh, you wrote that? Oh, okay, what? You think men are hard to come by? Okay, ego, make sure there's no men for them and only the bad ones come in. Let's bring all the bad ones in. You understand?
Bring it out from behind the curtain, everyone.
Yeah,
March on out.
So it's really important that you become excellent at writing code. And the way you become excellent at writing code is that when you look at the water that's dirty, you don't go, oh, the water is dirty and the world is falling apart and no one's waking up. You know, oh, the water is healing right now. And there's all these amazing, powerful people right now who are waking up to bring understanding and collective consciousness to how we're going to be able to mitigate and eliminate all of these things that we're dealing with.
Abracadabra, I create as I speak. We are casting spells. We are spelling with every word that comes out of our mouth, every feeling, every emanation. We are the ones making it up. The stories that we tell are so important, right? And that's what I always say is like anytime something is coming across your path, especially when it's challenging, what's a story that I'm going to tell about that? We tell stories over and over that are so disempowering about what it did to us and how it took this away from us. Instead of, if you get really creative, you can say, okay, this thing happened to me and it's actually leading me to this better thing, and I just make shit up.
Yeah.
And then it turns out, next thing you know, you live in the Mystic Manor and you're doing a show.
Yeah.
Like, and anyone can do it.
That's right. That's right. That's right. I think what's happened is that in shamanism, we have this belief, which is the base belief, which is all stories, right, are the things that are actually expanding the person. So that's why in a lot of shamanic cultures, from African culture to Mongolian culture to Peruvian culture to Native American culture to all of the different cultures in shamanism, the Sami people, you name it, in Nordic culture, storytelling is really important. And it's always the elderly women or the elderly men, mostly the elderly women, who will tell the stories. And then these stories are to adapt empowerment and wisdom and insight and understanding into those in the tribe so that they can actually grow and then tell their stories from those stories, and the stories get passed down from generation to generation to generation. But one of the biggest things that has happened in society, which is why stories are not as prevalent as they should be, is because we've been pushing the elderly out of our circle. And they are the wisdom tellers. They are the ones who bring in the wisdom of their experiences to give it to us, and then we take those stories and mold them into new stories and so forth. And that's why I'm very strong about, like, we need to really support elderly women, elderly men. We need to start bringing them back in and start having conversations with them and seeing them as the new hot and cool, right? And really start learning from this wisdom that they have, and so that we can keep weaving this beautiful tapestry of life and not run out of string, because we started making the most important thing about like what's hot, what's cool, and Kim Kardashian and Paris Hilton, whoever these people are, whatever it is, it's taking us away from the teachings of Martin Luther King and Michelangelo and JFK and Helen Keller and the people who stood for things that they felt was in opposition, and they showed that they could actually overcome through it, through the power of spirit and through the power of strength and through moving past adversity.
So you have a passion for sustainable evolution.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
So sustainable evolution basically is that we have so much operated under the context that if we create sustainable, living, our homes and our environments, our food and all of these things, that's actually what sustains us. And yeah, those are great things. Again, it's a model for the outside. It's not the model for the inside. And so much we are operating in this field of construction and building from the outside that we create a narrative that supports those things, saying if we do this and we live in a sustainable house and we have sustainable food and we do all these things, that we're actually making change on the planet. And so I've been working with a lot of scientists worldwide and really coming to an understanding of the formation of how we as individuals grow in our ability to expand beyond the consciousness of which we actually been programmed with, which is our school systems, our parentals, our guardians, and our authority figures, which is always based on the idea that something is missing and something is missing from us. And so we have this yearning. So it's easy for consumerism, it's easy for media, it's easy for anything to plug us in to something that's feeding us poison and degrading us in the need that we need something because we're not good enough, we're not love enough, we're not this enough, we're not that enough, and we start buying into that narrative, and it actually starts creating distortion and destruction within our own cellular process, the way we build inflammation in the body, the way it affects our cerebrum cortex, the way it affects the building of our mitochondria and really having that healthy cell growth in our body. So for me, sustainable evolution is about how do we sustain within ourselves. One of the biggest problems that, and I was speaking about it in Spain recently in a lecture with a bunch of doctors, that we're dealing with a lot of depression, suicide, we're dealing with a lot of mental issues, we're dealing with a lot of issues where people are not being able to understand that they already have post-traumatic stress disorder that's already existing in their spiritual and emotional body. It just may not be physically. The movies you watch when you see something killing another person, or if you see people killing each other, people fighting in stage and punching each other in the face and doing all these things, are actually creating waves of distortion that are creating destructive codes in your being that says it's okay for this stuff to exist, and that's why war continues on our planet. And so we have to become a lot more sustainable in ourselves, and that's how do we sustain happiness, where we don't have to keep going up and down in a roller coaster of happiness. How do we sustain healthy relationships that are amplifying love out of the idea of pitting each other in this power game of who's right, who's wrong, and I'm afraid of love, and I'm not afraid of love, and all these games that people play in relationships. How do we create sustainable understanding of preservation of culture? Right? Anything that seems different or foreign to anyone, we have a tendency to take this old belief system, which is if there's a tribe that's different from the one that is, you find fear, and that fear makes you want to go out and attack them and cause insult to them to protect the fear that you actually feel that you don't want to take responsibility for. And so what you have is right now, it's all these people are now looking for the monster. They're pointing the finger outward, looking for the big, bad, ugly. And then now on our planet, it's like the more you suffer, the more popular you become. And it's become the suffering popularity game. That's not sustainable. None of those things are sustainable. What's sustainable is when we begin to nurture our inner, so that inner is so sustainable that we can generate our own happiness, our own this, our own that. So prosperity is constantly flowing. We're always in that flow. We're not in the lack, limitation, scarcity mode. Then we're able to truly step into who we are as sustainable beings. And that's what I mean by sustainable evolution, is that we need to evolve through the sustainability of humankind. Not everyone's concerned with the Earth. Look, the Earth can freeze over and be a big ice cube in the middle of the universe. We have to thrive as a species, and the only way we're going to do so is to create sustainable evolution within ourselves.
Yeah. Absolutely. It is always about coming back to the self, right?
Yeah.
Always coming back to, as within, so without. And so many people, I think, feel disempowered because they think it's so big out there. It's so massive. There's so much problem, so much disarray. And when you start taking this whole idea that you are living in your own private universe, YO universe, and everything is a reflection of you in some way, shape, or form, and you're this multidimensional being this is all sort of a light show that you're dreaming in a sense. And like now, how powerful is the story that's happening overseas or whatever's happening down the road that you feel so disempowered about? If you get into a state of, I've often thought of it like, there's all these different timelines where based off of where I'm at depends which one I'm going to step into. And I'm sure you're familiar with this whole idea. And so when you start thinking about it in those terms, it's like, what's going to happen in the future may be totally different for me than someone out there who's hearing this at this exact moment. If they all of a sudden decided, you know what, I don't believe any of this stuff, I'm going dark, and they focus on negative, everything, 10 years from now, they may be in some other timeline that is more of a reflection of where they're at. And really, we're like ships passing in the night, right? I've stepped into, if I've held the vibration of something that is a timeline that is, where heaven on earth is happening. We're here to heal all. I'm telling a totally different story, as an example. And so I feel like that is a very empowering way to look at it when you understand that it's like you're having your own private experience, and everything and everyone is a prop in a sense in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. To add to what you were saying, You know, in shamanism, we believe in the nucleus, right? So we say all suffering comes because human beings leave themselves from the nucleus. So that means that in your nucleus, there's just you as the source. And any person that penetrates the cell or the field of your awareness is because you've created them to penetrate it because of what you've done inside. So when a woman comes to me and says, you know, my husband cheated on me, I go, well, you've been cheating on yourself for years. And now he's just showing up and revealing to you what that looks like, when it feels like, because you haven't been listening to what you've been doing internally. When someone goes, I don't feel like no one understands me, it's because you don't understand you. When you feel like, oh, I don't feel like there's enough money, I don't feel like there's enough this for me, that's because you don't see the abundant nature of your own internal being. You don't see that you are, you know, everyone's obsessed with the vampires and all this kind of stuff, and I see it a lot in the media, but we are eternal beings. This is just one embodiment out of the billion embodiments we can take into other forms with other eyes and other arms and maybe no arms and maybe just squishy bodies. The thing is,
blobs, if you will.
yeah, as you will. In shamanism, the way we look at this chair is that this is not just a chair. This is someone's consciousness or a group of people's consciousness. And at any given time, I could just choose to like go in, and we can go into that consciousness and ride that consciousness to all the different people who created this chair. We have access to frequencies and energies that go far beyond what we actually see in our own dimension, but it's all based on your perception, and it's all based on your open data, meaning your willingness to let go of your judgment, of your ideas of what you think is possible, to the limitless expansion of everything being possible.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me think of, I don't know if you ever heard this, supposedly when the Spanish first came to, you know, North America, at least the story that we know of course, there's been visitors and people here going back who knows how far, but when they came, you know, what, hundreds of years ago, the natives supposedly couldn't see the ships because they had never seen anything like it, so their eyes couldn't perceive something that was not, you know, part of their knowledge, part of their history. And it was actually the shamans that could first see the ships, and then over time it's like, hold on, there's these things coming, like
They saw the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they saw the ripples in
Right,
the water.
right, that's right.
Because in shamanism, our first part of our training is observation of movement. And so we observe like how many times you blink, how many times you breathe. We watch how many times your eyes dilate. We watch if the leaves are blowing, if the wind is blowing, if the waves are moving a certain way. And we take images of it. And if there's change in the frequency of any of those things, we read the change of that frequency. So the shamans were looking at the water.
Yeah.
They saw the change in the water. And they go, oh, what is this? This is weird. Why is it like, it wasn't like, the water doesn't move like this.
Yeah.
And so they kept going back and staring at the water, and they started seeing, and that's when they started seeing the ships coming in. But it's a powerful thing,
Yeah, very, very powerful. Wow. So let's talk a little bit about the giant age.
Yeah.
What is the giant age? Heard you.
So I talk about that in my book, actually. But the giant age, basically, to me, is that we are actually in small, tiny little bodies. And that what we really are giants, and what we come from is this giant, you know, what you want to call the inner planes of light, is we are giants. We are like bigger than the universe, right? And we fit ourselves into these tiny little bodies. And when we're in these little bodies, we begin to believe that this is who we are, because the microisms and the bacteria and all the fungi in our body knows eventually it belongs to Earth, that it will die. But we are these eternal beings. And so we are this giant inside this body, but we've been told to play small. And so that's why people are looking for everything from like peyote to iboga to this, to kambo, to kapo, you know, to anything that to sapo, to anything that is going to take them to a place of recognizing their giantness, right? Because everyone knows they're lied to. Everyone knows they've been lied to. Since the day they arrived, they knew they were lied to. It's like, okay, come on, really? Okay, so I'm supposed to believe that I'm not loved unless this and that. Like, we know intrinsically that we are pure love, but we also accepted the lie because we wanted to believe in our families and our guardians and our parentals and authority figures and whatnot, to say, well, they should know better, they love us, so we should play their game. And then we come out of that game. And what I call the giant age is where we are right now, is that we're recognizing our giantness. And so we're not putting it with bullshit anymore. We're not in for the game anymore. We're tired of the nonsense. We want to simplify things. We know how powerful we are. And so everything that's coming against your power, you're actually rebelling against it, because the giant in you is like, I've had enough of playing small. And I've come to be a giant, and this is the giant age, and the giants will walk this earth.
And when the giants say, I'm ready to play large, you kind of got to move aside, right? You don't really
I mean, that's what it is. And so, you know, I look at it as like the precursor of what's happening with this blackout, which I'm sure you'll ask about. But the thing is that, it's important right now, where we are right now in our evolution, to recognize our individual source of power. Because look, it's the same thing I said, like, the system right now is built upon the understanding that you are not going to question what is happening, but you're going to go ahead and be I call it being a bobblehead. You're just going, yes, 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 right? And so being a giant is recognizing that there's something off in the frequency, which means that the frequency is telling you 80% of your life is spent in survival and 20% is spent in enjoying and figuring out your life, when it should be like all of your life should be about enjoyment and having fun and having great conversations and great dinners and making love and just enjoying the beauty and the bliss and art and dancing and and just laughing and being a kid, and
Yes.
so we have to return back to that nature, is to recognize that the only way we're going to be able to shift the system is that we ourselves have to shift our perception and how we see ourselves, and we're giants.
Yes, absolutely. So I have a forthcoming book here, Spirit Hacking. So that's one of the things that you talk about in the book.
Yeah, I talk about everything from social issues, why certain leaders are showing up, as far as like why we have certain leaders showing up the way they are, to women issues, to what's happening in our drug administration culture, as far as like pharmaceutical companies, to understanding different shamanic keys that you can use in your life to access your powers in a way quicker way. Because spirit hacking, to me, is one of my best friends, and he wrote the foreword to it, is Dave Asprey. He started biohacking. And he said to me, Durek, you're a spirit hacker, because you've shown me how to access, like, changing the heart rate in my body. Like, I would sit with these doctors and they're like, show me how to change my heart, or change my breathing, or lower my blood pressure, just with going in and using your powers in your spirit. And we have so much powers inside, and literally we're all walking Jedis, but we've been told that we don't. And we've been told it's only in movies, and we've been told it's only in these types of things. And spirit hacking is about getting back to that place. It's removing the layers. Most shamans that I work with around the world and I talk to, they're always like, oh, the people aren't ready for that. They're not ready for that. Let's just give them the medicine and see what happens. Let's give them the medicine, see what happens. I don't believe in that. I'm a spirit shaman. So my culture comes from putting the power back in your hand. It's like, you have the ability to do all these things. You can talk to spirits. Like, I couldn't imagine anyone walking out the door and not having full access to their ancestors. And because your ancestors on the other side can open up doors for you, they can move things for you, they can make things happen for you. We talk about that in the book. We talk about so many things, and we give you like over 40 different spirit hacks that you can to hack your life and make this, like, what you would learn in shamanism that would take 20 years, you learn it in like 15 minutes. And the book is my first book that I wrote was in Turkey, and I wrote it in Turkish, so I had to go learn the language in Turkey to write my first book, and it was for women empowerment. And I said, when I write my book for the world, for America, it's going to be for the world. And now it's being published in every country around the world. So it's not just launching in the United States, it's launching in Spain, it's launching in Denmark, it's launching in England, it's launching in Africa, it's launching everywhere. And it's about really creating change in the self.
Yeah. Super exciting. Congratulations for that.
Thank
I look
you.
forward to diving in fully and really learning some of these hacks. And one of the things that comes to mind, having crossed people who sort of facilitate plant medicine and hearing other people's perspective on shamanism, and this idea that it's this, I think of one friend in particular is like, look, you've got to be from a lineage to call yourself a shaman. And it's this sacred thing that, even though in his case he's been facilitating plant medicine for 25 years, that's his path with it. He's like, yeah, I don't call myself a shaman, though. I'm not part of a lineage. And so what's interesting for me is here's someone who is part of a lineage, and they're writing a book on, like, here's all the hacks. Here's how you can learn what I learned really quickly. And it's such an interesting and different sort of approach than some of the things that I've heard in the past. And so I'm curious, do you expect to get, you're probably used to getting a lot of blowback from the people out there. You're being broken in right now, right? Do you think you will get any of that from current shamans?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I'm already getting it, you
Yeah.
know? I already have friends who are like, I can't believe you're so, like, just doing that, The whole idea that you have to be born in a lineage to be a shaman is a bunch of baloney. first of all, okay? Because it's not the tribe that chooses you to be the shaman, it's the spirits. So I know children, like I have a little boy that I've been working with for since he was like 6 years old in London, and he's been training with me for about 4 years. He's very powerful now, and I'm training him to be a shaman. I have different kids that I work with around the world that I'm training to be a shaman, and all the adults as well too. It's not about being born in a lineage. The lineage is understanding the teachings that have been passed down through generation. But the thing is, the teachings come from the shaman, not from the tribe. Right. Do you understand? Right. So the spirits are the ones that choose the shaman, and the way they always choose a shaman is like, think of it like this: you're in a tribe, okay? Every person in that tribe does something. Either they fish, they hunt, they gather, they build, whatever it is. The person who is doing none of those things, even though they were told to do it, and is out like at night when everyone's sleeping, looking at the stars and hitting the tree with their stick and moldering them by themselves and doing whatever, and whatever, that's the shaman. So, yeah. And so whenever a shaman is chosen from a tribal, like from tribal culture, that's what the shaman looks for. He doesn't look for the person who follows the rules. He looks for the person who is doing the opposite of the rules, because the shaman always has to live outside of the circle and watch and see how he could support or how she can support the evolution of the tribe, the nurturing of the tribe, the healing of the tribe, what does the tribe need to sustain itself, to be a tribe. And so the ancestors, the spirits, are the shaman's teacher. So you'll read in my book about some of my experiences. Some of my teachers weren't physical. Some of them would wake me up at night, I'd be sleeping, and they'd hit me in my sleep, and I would shake, and there would be like this man in front of me, and he's like, "Come, boy, take a walk with me." And you just get used to it, because some people will go like, wow, that's crazy. That's why shamanism isn't for everyone, because you have to be very open to all of the different realms that exist and all the different spirits that exist in those realms, such as the one that we dealt with in the podcast that we first did, Lavana, for instance. Right? I've been dealing with Lavana not just in this life, but in other lifetimes. I'm very aware of Lavana. But in shamanism, we study, because our training is about accessing all these different spiritual dimensions. We know so many different spirits. So when someone goes through, like at night when they're in bed and they're like, "Oh my God, my body can't move, and and I can't breathe. I feel like something is holding my body down," right? And they think it's sleep paralysis. We know what the spirit is that's doing that. Or if someone is saying like, "Oh my God, I'm walking in the house and I keep hearing these negative thoughts and something is telling me to do these things," I know it's spirit they're talking to, because that's how we train. So, but the thing is, you get to the point of shamanism, and what my goal is and what I believe, and why some shamans disagree with me, and I don't really care what they disagree with, because right now I always tell my friends, like, it's time to step up. Stop giving them plant medicine and start teaching them real power, right? The plant medicine is like the last thing we're told to give if people can't open up that doorway, right? Which is not saying that it doesn't support. It does support a lot of amazing things.
Sure.
The thing is, what I'm seeing now in today's culture is that it's become the new trend. It's the new black. It's like, if you've done ayahuasca and you've puked and you've done all these things, you get social cred and street cred and social cachet, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, it's cool. Wow, you did it. Wow, da da da," and I'm gonna go do it again. It makes you codependent again, and that's what the system wants. The system's like, yeah, that's great. All the ones who are on top who don't want to give up their power and want to see us constantly supporting the system that they've built are like, yeah, keep doing more, keep being more codependent, never come into your real power.
Right.
Because the thing is that we have to recognize that, like, all of these things, like, it doesn't matter if you're a guru or a shaman or a mystic or a priest or whatever, we are all here to learn. Like, I am not perfect. I am on a planet of refinement. This is not the planet of perfection. Right. So therefore, there's times where I do things that run contrary to my best interest, and I'm learning as well in the process of enjoying it, embracing it, and loving it. So this whole kind of guru mentality, shaman, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. It's like worshiping another golden calf. Totally. It's like, oh, and it's like, no. So my whole thing is like, I want to make everybody shamans, because then I sleep better at night, Because then I know, I'd be like, call you up, I'd be like, yo, my ancestors said something, I didn't get a clear message. Can you tell me what they said?
Okay, so.
You know what I mean? Like, you're like, Durek, you're not going to that restaurant today. Crazy stuff's happening. We're going over here. Everyone should have their power. We should be transparent in our power. And that is only going to happen by returning back to our roots. And that root is shamanism. It's the ability to be the true aspect of shamanism is being a child again.
Yes.
Playing. You ask my girlfriend, what is my favorite thing to do? Video games, play. I mean, I couldn't be with her if she didn't play with me and we play video games. I have action figures. I'm like a kid. You know, I'm like, we're going to swing, we're going to do that, we're going to skip, we're going to dance, we're going to sing Disney songs together. We're going to do all this stuff because that's the path. Because a shaman is chosen by their ability to be lighthearted about everything. I don't get mad at people when they don't grow. I'm like, oh, I made a mistake and I did this horrible thing to you. I'm like, okay, so what?
Yep.
Okay, moving on, you know?
The one Bible verse that I'm really a fan of, lest you become like a child, you can't enter the kingdom of heaven. You know, I always say, my aim is to be the poster adult for childhood. And I believe that's the path. That is the path to heaven on earth. That's how we enter heaven, is becoming that childlike wonder and innocence and belief in magic. And it's just a beautiful thing that you're doing. And I got to tell you guys, okay, so episode 802 is the first time he was on my show. And since he brought it up, so we're talking, and you can see, how he goes. And he brings up, somehow this topic of possession comes up. And I'm like, Durek, I never really subscribed so much to the idea of possession until my child's mother, I watched her kind of take a turn at one point in her journey, maybe 10 years ago, where she was, a little bit crazy girl to, oh, wow, this is like kind of dark and kind of scary and sort of like yin to my yang in a sense. It felt like I'm, so like optimistic and positive. And she was like, I am the queen of this dominion and you will all die if you do not bow to me. That kind of energy. And this is someone who tested genius on their IQ as a child, like, no dummy, but all of a sudden, like, it was just dark. And he just goes into, all of the stuff about, oh, it's a Levana spirit, and he just, does she say this? Does she do this? Here's how you can disempower her. Here's say this. He went hard in the paint. I mean, he went for it. And I'm like, all right, well, he's definitely, going for it. Maybe so. I can't say it's true or not true. I'm not having that experience of seeing it's a Levana spirit or whatever. So then an hour or so later, I'm going to get some lunch or something with my son. And I'm like, yeah, you should listen to this podcast I just recorded with this guy, Durek. Really cool, really interesting. And he claimed your mother is like, possessed by this Levana spirit. And he looked at me and he goes, Dad, that's what she named my new sister. And I'm like, okay, that's not Jennifer or Sally. And so I know you are beyond seeking credibility, but to me, that was like I have a lot of people come on the show, say a lot of things, and I'm like, maybe so. I'm wide open, and, and that was a pretty amazing moment, so yeah. It's just, there's a lot more going on than people really realize. It's and I think we've sort of been shielded from a lot of it. The general, obviously you've had a pretty unique path, and there's others who've had, blasted open at 5 years old and seen spirits and all. But the average person, I feel like, has kind of had the blinders on. But now there's like, perfect timing for your book to come out. It's time for the world to wake up. It's time for people to claim their power and to remember, even if there is something that dark is out there, it's actually a tool ultimately for love. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, and the desert is dry is Levana's weakness.
Yes, that's what you said.
Levana does not like that, and the night is cold. There you go.
Yes.
Good.
Things you could say to disempower.
There's different spirits have different weaknesses, and some of them can't handle certain things, and some of them get more power from it. So, when you were a kid and you were in your room, and like everyone has the ability. Everyone in this room has gone to a point when they were a kid, there was something in their closet, something under their bed, there was something calling them behind them, something that they felt a chill go up the back of their neck. They just didn't know what it was. Yeah. And where I come in is to help to really help you understand what it is. Why are you getting that chill in the back of your neck? Why are you falling and you felt like you fell through all these buildings and your body jerks like this in bed? Why are these things happening to you? What do they mean? Why do you have certain birthmarks in certain areas of your body? What does it signify? What is dyslexia? What is this? What is bipolar? What are these real things in shamanism versus what they are in the Western world? Very different context, very different in its complete association. So it's about being able to really be the spiritual ambassador to showing you that you have all of these abilities and gifts inside of you, and to not make these spiritual laws that we see on the planet with these gurus and these ideas like you have to do this and this because you're not worthy to get this information. I'm like, open the books for everyone. Open the books, put everything on the table, let them take from what they need. We don't have time for these games.
Yes, I love that.